let's talk about fat loss expectations first. So, Mark, let's just say that this right here is a pool of water. Okay. Now, we get asked a lot about, hey, losing stubborn body fat, or oh, I just want to get rid of the man boobs, or my lower abdominals, right? We hear about that all the time. Okay. Now, fun question to ask, right? And it's a silly question, but it's going to once again make it easier for everybody to understand. Let's just say Mark is on the edge of this pool, right? He's boom, boom. This is Mark. We'll give him even some muscles in there, right? And so let's say Mark has a little bucket, okay? And he's taking that bucket, all right, and he's dumping it into the pool. And let's say he's tossing that pool, the water that's inside the bucket, over here onto the concrete, okay? So, Mark, what realistically happens over here to this pool of water? Does it just go from waves and flat surface water to like a big dip to over here where you pull the water out?
No,
No?
no, it goes down evenly as I scoop out the water.
Okay, cool. So it all goes down evenly, right? Can we agree on that? Right? This isn't rocket science. Okay. So I want everybody to understand in terms of losing body fat, it works very much the same. Okay. Here is where you will always lose body fat first. Let me get on here the text. Okay. Face. And the reason why I'm telling you guys this is because I want you to understand like where to look for these errors. If you don't see like the progression in these areas, like, and you're always looking at your midsection, and the midsection is the very last little bit to lose the body fat, you're always going to get discouraged because you're looking for something that's not changing yet. Keyword. So face, arms, upper chest, upper back, legs. Okay. So now that everybody knows, like, this is what's going to always come off of you first. Okay. The little bit that's always the struggle spot is always going to be in your midsection, abs, midsection, especially the lower abs. Okay. I have never once seen in my life of all 31 going on 32 years here, next years of being alive, I have never once seen somebody that is fat, flabby arms, fat double chin face, chubby cheeks, man boobs, fat legs, and six-pack abs. Mark, have you ever seen that person?
Nope.
Jeremy, have you ever seen that person? Mike, have you ever seen that person?
No, sir.
Okay, so I'm not trying to be rude, guys, but like I don't think that person exists unless you're playing like Grand Theft Auto and you like created that as a video game character. Okay, so I'm telling you guys this is because everybody always looks in the mirror at their midsection. I'm not even gonna lie, I do exactly the same, right? It's like, oh, I want that right there. Like I want to see my abs. Like how am I doing? How I'm progressing. But I'm letting you guys know, especially if you're early on in your fat loss journey, there's going to be some areas where you're going to progress a lot faster. On top of that, you are constantly seeing yourself each and every single day. So what does that mean? You might not notice the changes as opposed to, let's say, somebody else that doesn't see you every day. Maybe that's your coworkers, maybe that's people in like your neighbors or something like that, where you see them maybe, once a week or once every other week. When you start progressing more and more on your journey, you're going to notice that, hey, people are start going to give you compliments. They're going to start seeing a difference, even though that you might not see it first and foremost. Mark, has that ever happened to you where you kind of realized maybe when you first got started with Heartletics, you were losing some weight, but maybe when you see yourself every single day, you might not see those differences, but other people were able to see it. Maybe it was Jen or maybe your kids.
Yeah, or even just, friends or whatever. Yeah, because like you said, when you're looking consistently at yourself, you don't see it the same way others like, Jen, even like something with Jen and the kids where they're seeing you every day, but when you see someone who maybe you haven't seen in a little bit, like they really, will notice it more because there's like, they haven't been, watching you every day. And that's where you'll be like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And putting that aside, guys, because obviously, like when people are seeing how you're literally changing before their eyes, it feels good, right? But putting that aside, I want to give you guys some key things to focus on when it comes to progression, because it's very easy to get lost in the sauce of like the numbers, whether it's the number on the scale, right? Whether it's body fat percentage, whether it's your measurements, whether it's your lean muscle tissue, anything like that. It's once again very easy to get lost in the sauce. So, what are some areas of progression? Okay. I like to go off of this first and foremost. Look and feel. Okay. Why does that matter the most? Well, when you look good, you feel good. When you feel good, you do good. This helps you out mentally, but it also helps you out with having more confidence. Okay. And so, once again, when you start seeing these differences, and maybe that's like the clothes are fitting better, and that's another one. These are great signs that you're on progression, whether the scale is changing or not, whether the body fat is changing or not. If you have more energy, if you feel more confident, you're progressing, right? When your clothes are fitting better, right? Maybe it's a little bit looser on you. Guess what? You're progressing. If let's say you notice that you have more energy, if let's say you notice that like you're lifting heavier weights, and this is something that a lot of people I want to focus on understand, like that is a great tool of progression is lifting heavier weights, because this little whiteboard, this is just the start of it. I'm going to share with you guys, once again, a little mindset that I want you guys to focus on as we progress more and more on your fat loss journey. Hey, Gabe said a perfect one, right? Hungry again, right? And that's a good sign, especially that your metabolism is speeding up in the right direction. So these are all great signs of progression. Okay. Now, let's get to the meat and the potatoes of all this. This is going to be a really cool analogy. Mark, I'm going to use you. Jeremy, I'm going to use you. Mike, I'm going to use you. Okay. So let's just say that I have a bucket. Okay. This is my bucket. And let's just say that like inside here, it's a bunch of water. All right. Jeremy, I'm going to throw you on here. I don't see you, but there I see you now. Let me see if I can move you up there. No, I can't. Oh, there we go. Okay. So Jeremy, with all this water that's inside, how do I get the water out? If let's just say I had a bucket, how would I get it out of the bucket?
Get poured out.
Okay. Mark, how would I get the water out?
Tip the bucket.
Tip the bucket. Mike, would you agree?
Yeah, that works for me.
Okay, perfect. So we can easily tip that bucket and lose, right, the water. So let's just say that this bucket is our bodies. And let's just say that the water inside of us is body fat. And so how do we actually lose the body fat? Well, eat in a calorie deficit, eat plenty of protein, right? Get your steps in. You guys know the drill, right? The basic habits that we all go over, right? Get plenty of sleep, get plenty of water in. But when it comes down to a little hack, and it's not even a hack, right? Because some of you guys know this and you guys hear me talk about this often, but I always have to demonstrate or show it. And that's why I want to bring up this whiteboard as a better analogy, as a mindset. Because there's going to be some people, when I say put on muscle, they're immediately thinking of like the big, bulky bodybuilders. And that's not the case at all, right? I want you guys to focus on putting on muscle in terms of helping you lose more body fat, especially if you hit this stall. Because here's the reality. Everyone's going to hit a stall. Everyone is, right? There's going to be a certain threshold where if let's just say, hey, we're at, 2,000 calories. We cut down to 1,800 calories. Now we're at like 1,700 calories. And it's like, dude, we can't even go much lower because either one, it's not sustainable, right? It's not going to work long term. It's way too little calories. If we go any lower, maybe we're not even hitting enough protein, or maybe it's like all we're eating is protein. And it's just like, once again, that's not fun. That's not flexible for our lifestyle. So we hit this stall. And like, this is where Mark, Jeremy, Mike, I want to talk a little bit more about the reverse dieting because it's going to be very, very key in here. But before we get to that, here's the mindset I want everybody to understand and adapt when it comes to putting on muscle. Okay. So we got our bucket of water that's right here with my great analogy. Let's just use another one. And let's just say it's the same bucket. Okay. Just like this. We got the water in there. We got the water in there. We got the water in there. Now, instead of us actually pouring and dipping the water out, meaning like eating a calorie deficit, getting more steps in, right? Like getting plenty of sleep, water, hydration, the whole 9 yards that I mentioned, okay? What if instead of us doing that, let's just say we got this bucket, and let's just say I had a soccer ball, right? And I threw in here this soccer ball, okay? And let's just say over here, I had a big football, right? My crappy analogy of a football, okay? And let's just say I also took in here, I don't know, let's just say a big 10 pound, no, use a 45-pound plate, right? So Jeremy, I'm going to go to you first. Okay. Let's just say that, Tom, I got your message just for verification. Can everybody else see my drawing?
Yes.
Okay. So Tom, it's you, not me, brother. So let's just say that I got this bucket of water. And let's just say that once again, I add in here the soccer ball, I add in here the football, and a 45-pound plate. Jeremy, what happens to that water when I'm adding stuff in?
You're pushing it over the top.
Oh, okay. Okay. There we go. Mike, what happens to that water when I push it in? Push stuff in.
Displacement, the water goes out.
The water goes out. Mark, would you agree or
Yeah.
disagree?
Agreed. Displacement. Absolutely.
Perfect. Okay. So guys, all I want you to do now for this whole analogy, water, right? The bucket is your body. The water is the body fat. And the soccer ball, the football, the 45-pound plate, that's the muscle. Okay. Now, I want this to be very crystal clear because when I tell you guys, hey, focus on progressive overload, push yourself, it's not to just get big and strong and, hitting PRs. It's to help you on your fat loss journey. This is a fat loss coaching program, right? And here's the reason why. I could have somebody that is, let's just say this guy right here, boom, boom, boom. Give him some legs over here. Give him some legs over here. Arms. Cool. And let's just say that this person is 30% body fat. Okay. And let's just say that this person over here, let's just say that they look a little bit different. Let's just say that they got nice little muscular chest, some abs, right? Maybe some biceps. Oh, look at that. I'm getting a little creative with this thing. Two biceps on one arm. Whoa, that's okay. That's different, I guess. So let's just say now that this person right here weighs exactly 220 pounds. Okay. And now let's just say that this person over here weighs exactly 220 pounds. But the only difference is that this person right here is once again 30% body fat, and this person over here is 15% body fat. Okay. So the reason why I'm telling you guys that is because one, don't ever go off the number on the scale, right? Like, sure, it's great to see the number on the scale go down, but the reality is like, it does not mean that you're actually like, improving your health. Because once again, if let's just say you're losing water weight, like what good is that? If you're losing muscle, that's actually going to hurt you in the long run because it's going to slow down your metabolic rate. So always go off of these variables where it's, hey, how do I look? How do I feel? Am I getting stronger? Are the clothes fitting better? Focus on the fat loss, not necessarily on the weight loss. Okay. Now, with that being said, how do we put on some muscle? Lean muscle, right? AKA, we're putting the soccer ball, we're putting the football, we're putting the 45-pound plate into the bucket of water to extract and get the water outside of the bucket, AKA lose more body fat. Let's just go over that real quick, right? Progressive overload. Jeremy, and in fact, if you guys have any tips at all, right, when it comes to progressive overload or anything to chime in, like Gabe, I know that you put that in the chat about the, feeling hungrier again. Why don't you guys all put down in the chat as well? Besides Jeremy, besides Mark, besides Mike, what do you guys think in terms of like, how do you progress? Just throw it in there, right? You guys should be learning this stuff anyways, right? Coaching program. It's all knowledge based. So Jeremy, let's go to you first, right? What are some ways of progressive overload? Just give one.
Add more weight each set.
Add more weight. Mike, let's go to you next.
Less time in between sets.
Perfect. And Tim O'Hearn just said that. So shorter rest. Mark?
More reps.
More reps. Perfect. Gabe said that as well. Slower reps. Yeah, I like that. Slower reps. More protein. This is specifically, Jeff, about lifting heavier weights, right? Progressive overload. Eating more protein has nothing to do with it. I'm gonna make it sure you're sleeping well. Yeah, I mean that's great, right? But once again, Richard, that is more so of like recovery. That has nothing to do with like actually lifting the weights and doing an exercise. So guys, this is only about like when you're in the gym or at home, you're actually doing something actively, right, involved when it comes to lifting the weights and putting them right back down. Okay, so let's just go off these and let's go into look at the last workout and add some more weight. Yep, Brian Boss said that. So perfect, right? So just like kind of what Jeremy just said. So in fact, I'm going to cross off, Tim, the slower reps and just put time under tension because it's just easier for me to talk about that. Okay. So let's go off of these. So more rep. Let's do it like this. More reps. And we'll do less rest. Yeah, Gabe, that's actually a good one. We'll talk about that. Muscle confusion. Actually, and we'll add also mind muscle connection. Cool. So let me teach you guys about this, and then we'll call it a day in terms of this little whiteboard analogy, okay? Here's how you're going to progress when it comes to building muscle. And remember, mentally, don't think about building muscle as big, bulky, steroid-looking bodybuilder. Think about it as just like you progressing more on your fat loss journey, okay? Because once again, you're going to hit a stall. And so if you can't take away any more calories or do any more extra, steps or cardio or activity from the exercise form, you can always progress more on your fat loss journey by the progressive overload and lifting heavier. And then Mark, Mike, and Jeremy, we're going to talk about reverse dieting and how that kind of aids pair and pair with all of this, okay? So progressive overload, right? Add more weight. It's very simple. If let's say 1 week you are dumbbell pressing, let's say 50 pounds, try your best to lift 60 pounds or 70 pounds, right? Even if it's 55 pounds, just 5 pounds more, you always want to focus on lifting more weights. Now, most of you guys have the rep ranges, unless you're on like a powerlifting split of mine or some crazy like Coach Joe / Mike Hoffman workouts. It's going to look a little bit different, right? But most of you guys are in hypertrophy range, which is perfect for losing fat and building muscle. 8 to 12 reps, 3 to 5 sets. Okay. Now, when it comes down to the 8 to 12 rep range, I see a lot of guys making the same mistakes where they try to lift like around the 12 rep range, right? They will see this 3 sets, and then they're going to see on here 8 to 12 reps. Okay. So if let's just say that first set number 1, 12 reps, set number 2, 12 reps, set number 3, 12 reps. Okay. A lot of guys think that this is cool, right? Like, hey, even if they're progressing with the weight, like maybe it's a bench press or dumbbell bench press, maybe it's like the first set they do 50 pounds and it's 12 reps. Maybe the second set they do 60 pounds, it's 12 reps, right? Even though they progress 10, pounds extra. And that third set, maybe it might even be 70. So technically they're still focusing on progressive overload. But what I would always say is, like, imagine if you lift, let's say like 90 pounds and you got only 8 reps. Okay. Somebody might think like, oh, but I'm doing less. I'm sure you guys heard less equals more, right? Especially when it comes down to progressive overload. That is so key. So if you're really pushing yourself, and I like to see is go off the RPE scale. What is that? Reps per exertion. So that means like a number 1 is like effortless. Like you can do 1,000,000 reps, right? You're not even breaking a sweat. Number 10, right, is like, dude, you can only do 1 rep. So go off of between like an 8 to a 9, 7 on the lowest on that RPE scale. Meaning like if let's say, and this is like a prime example of like my workout for today, 8 to 12 reps. The first set I did was 70 pounds, 12 reps. And then I went up to 85 pounds and I did 10 reps. And then I did 100 pounds and I did 9 reps. So it's like you want to push yourself. But guess what? When I'm doing the 100 pounds for that third set, I'm at like 6 and I'm like really like struggling to push up that weight, right? Like that's what I mean by really exerting yourself, pushing yourself. And mentally, once again, you're going to hear me sound like a broken record. When it comes to lifting heavier weights, you're not going to get all big, bodybuilder bulky. You're going to lose more body fat. Okay. So the another thing that we can do is, hey, let's say we hit a plateau. So let's just say me, for example, I'm stuck at 100 pounds for dumbbell chest press. And I'm like, I can't lift anymore, right? Like I'm stuck between 8 and 9 reps. I can't lift anymore because maybe I'm not hitting that rep range, whatever the case may be. Well, guess what? Maybe from there, I'm focusing on maybe that next set instead of progressing up. Like let's say the next time I'm working out, Over here for set number 2, I get, I don't know, maybe like 10 reps with the 100 pounds. Over here, I might try to do 10 reps again, or I might try to do 11 reps where I'm still lifting heavy, but I know I can't lift any heavier or more. Maybe it hurts my joints, maybe whatever the case may be. It's just like I fail every single time I try to lift up a little bit more. So what can I do? I can get comfortable at that set weight doing just more reps. So anything in terms of you're doing more volume, you're once again putting more time under tension on the muscle, which is right here, number 3. Time under tension could be slower reps. It could be more volume. It could be lifting heavier weights. It's exerting the muscle itself. It could be fast twitch muscle fibers that you're training on that chest versus slow twitch muscle fibers. It's once again how you're putting more time on that tension to training effectively. You might hit a certain point where, hey, maybe I need to just take away some shorter rest intervals. Most of the things on the app, guys, it's going to have like 90 seconds in between each set. But in the summary, I always have in there, and in the very bottom, if you read it, it says rest between 30 and 90 seconds, 90 being max. If you can rest 30 seconds to 45 seconds, that's personally a good sweet spot for me. It does 2 things. One, you're able to progress with that, workout, and obviously being able to tax the muscle a little bit more because you're taking less time in between each set, but also you get a shorter workout in. You're able to literally do all the exercises in a much shorter time frame. Muscle confusion, right? So this is what Gabe kind of talked about in terms of how do we switch things up? Well, most of you guys know that, hey, every about 4 weeks, you're going to get a whole new workout routine, right? Especially if you're at the gym, it might go from a push-pull routine to maybe like, chest and back, something a little bit different. And the reason why is just like how calories and macros, your body's going to hit a plateau. It's the same thing with the training. Your body's going to hit this stall, this metabolic stall, when it comes to lifting the same amount of weights or doing the same amount of exercises, same amount of rep ranges. So when you're able to switch things up, maybe it's the order of the exercise, maybe it's the muscle groups that you're training. It's once again making it confusing where you have to be more focused, meaning the last part, mind muscle connection, right? You're focused on training that muscle. If I'm staring in front of the mirror, just doing bicep curls, and I'm talking to my buddy like, hey, dude, how was your weekend? Awesome. Sounds cool, right? I'm sure I might be getting a little bicep pump in there, but think about it if like I was actually focused, staring at the muscle, getting the contractions on every single time I'm doing that, rep range, I'm focusing more on training it. It's the same thing as if, let's say, you're ever struggling with a certain body part and it's not progressing with the muscle definition that you want. You could put your hand on it, right? Dumbbell crossovers or flies, great. In fact, if you guys literally just do this right now with your hand and put it on your chest and bring your other arm and bring it across, you will feel that engagement with your chest. When you're feeling something, it's a sense, right? And that sense is going straight up to your brain, right? Straight up to your noggin. So if you want to focus on engaging more of the muscles, you can focus once again on either literally looking at that muscle, contracting it, right, mentally, or just simply by touching it. Now, the reason why I just gave you guys this whole analogy, as you can see, we started over here, Mark's with his biceps on the side of the pool, dumping water out, right? Then we get into, different areas of how it progresses within the body of fat loss before it gets to the midsection, because that's what everybody looks at. Then it gets into what are areas of progression. Then we got into obviously the muscle building over here, how that aids in fat loss. Then we got into how just don't go off the number on the scale because somebody could weigh exactly the same, but be 30% body fat down to 15% body fat. Now we just got finished up over here with progressive overload. This is literally your masterclass when it comes to training your body effectively for losing fat and building muscle. Let's talk about the last part, right? Which is reverse diet. So reverse dieting, okay, there are pros and there are cons, okay? Now, the reason why I want to talk about this a little bit different in terms of not just like, hey, you're eating more food and you're losing a whole bunch of more body fat, because there's obviously some case studies where that doesn't play out. That's not effective. But rest assured of this. If somebody is, let's say, able to, I don't know, let's just use, let's just say, we'll say best case scenario and we'll say worst case scenario and we'll come to agreements. And then Mark, Jeremy, and Mike, if it's cool, I get a little bit of feedback from you guys on the reverse dieting side because you guys are pretty successful with it. Cool. All right, so let's say somebody's 200 pounds, and let's say they get stuck. Okay, so bear with me as I zoom in here, so I don't make too many edits. Let's say they get stuck at 20% body fat, and they are eating, let's say, 1,700 calories. And let's say they do a reverse diet for several weeks, and let's say their body fat goes up to 23%. Here, we'll actually say 25%. And they got their calories up to 3,000. Okay. So this is like not necessarily the best results, nor the worst results. Okay. Here's what like the best results. Let's just say actually their weight went up to let's say 208 pounds. Okay. So that's pretty accurate to say. Now, let's just say best results is somebody is 200 pounds. They start a reverse diet and they actually go down to 195 pounds. Okay. And let's just say that they start off at 20% body fat, eating 1,700 calories, and they go down to 17% body fat, eating 3,000 calories. Okay. So two analogies right here. Sometimes this happens, okay, where people don't typically see the best results on a reverse diet, where they're strategically going up with calories, knowing how to make some adjustments with their macronutrients, and they end up putting on some body fat, okay, 3,000 calories, and they, go up from 200 pounds to 208. And then there's case studies over here. Mark, Mike, Jeremy, right? You guys are great analogies of this where, hey, you get stuck. And so what happens? We do a reverse diet and your body fat actually drops. Your weight drops. Your calories go up, okay? Now, regardless of those two outcomes, this is what I want to share with you guys because it's a perspective shift. Just like how building muscle is just adding stuff to the bucket of water to help you lose more body fat, take a look at this perspective shift, okay? It's back over here. If let's say somebody is at 3,000 calories and they're at 25% body fat, and they all of a sudden went down to 2,000 calories, they might realistically drop to, 17% body fat during the course of going on that cut again, right? And somebody down here, they might be at 3,000 calories and they are at 17% body fat. And, they go down to 2,000 calories. Mike, this is pretty much like point blank example, like you almost, right? And you went down to 14% body fat or 13?
Well, that's where I'm at now, but that's after cutting after the reverse diet. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So realistically, it's kind of like this. So even though somebody might not get the best results when going from, let's say, this over to here, it's what happens here. Okay. Over here, somebody might get amazing results, but still, this is what we're after next. So the season of life, so to speak, right, is let's just say we have, wish there was a better way to draw this. January. All right, let's say we go to January to December over here. Okay, so this is a timeline, so everybody knows, right? Months. Boom, boom, boom. Just draw it like this. Okay, so please follow along. This is how it might look. It might look like over here. We'll just say like 3K. And over here, we'll just use half, right? We'll say 1,500, okay? So these are the calories. So let's say somebody starts over here, beginning of the year, and let's say they're on the mini cut, because hey, it's beginning of the new year. Everybody has that New Year's motivation, right? That big old high. So let's say maybe they're at like 2,200 calories, and that goes until here. And then let's just say they go on to either like maintenance or a little bit of reverse where they want to bulk up a little bit just before summer. So they might go up to here, right? When it comes down to the calories. But let's say summer then eventually hits and they want to cut down. So now we're cutting down for summer and now we're over here. And let's say we're maintaining that all the way until, let's just say, October, something like that, right before the holidays hit. And we go right back up to that reverse diet. Okay. So that means that this person's seasons of life is going off trends when it comes to holidays, when it comes to summer activities, knowing when to cut, knowing how to reverse diet properly. But keep in mind, guys, that like the body fat, like depending on how you're doing this, you're either going to see a slight little gain, but it might be a gain just to help you get 10 times lower when it comes to losing the body fat even more. So it's like realistically taking a step back, one or two, just to help you progress even more. Okay. So let's do this. Let's go to Jeremy. Let's go to Mike, and then we'll finish off with you, Mark, right? Because I know we got 15 minutes left. And I want to end it for a little bit Q&A afterwards too. Jeremy, during your experience during the reverse dieting, and I want to say this also because I just forgot before I get to you guys, when you're, let's say, over here at 3,000 calories, even though your body fat jumped up, right? And you're over here at 3,000 calories, even though the body fat maybe took a dip, guys, when you're eating more food, what are you also able to do? Think about it.
Lift more.
Lift more.
What's that?
Lift more.
Exactly. And so, guys, right, like doing a reverse diet, going back to this right here, if you're able to take some time to reverse diet properly to help you eventually, lift heavier weight, do you think realistically lifting heavier weight is going to help you put on more lean muscle tissue to help you dump more body fat off? Yes. Okay. So, Jeremy, let's go to you next, brother. Let me exit the whiteboard. What are your thoughts when you do the reverse diet?
They've been successful. I've leaned more towards the top of your diagram because I would always gain a little bit of body fat. I would have to, I'm not going to say suffer. I learned to expect that I wasn't going to be able to eat more and drop like Coach Brian, Coach Mark, all these guys have. It was whenever I got back to that cut, dropped from the 2,800 calories back down to 2,000, that mine just dropped completely off because my metabolic adaptation, the way it works, is different than everybody else's. So whenever I get stuck, I'm good with gaining 4, 5, 6, 7 pounds over 6, 8 weeks, because what's going to happen at the end of that 8 weeks, as soon as I drop those calories, I'm going to drop that 8 pounds in 2 to 3 weeks, and I'm going to keep dropping. My trends are just going to keep going down, and I've been down as low as, I think, 14% body fat doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. And you said the keyword, I know my trends, right? So like the longer you're doing this, guys, and the longer you're a part of this program, like you're gonna know your trends. You're gonna know what's working best for you. You're gonna know how to, realistically look at your trends and say, okay, I don't need to get all upset, get my emotions involved or anything like that. I'm doing this for a specific reason. It's like jujitsu, right? Like if let's say I'm pulling guard, right? Somebody's now on top of me. Somebody might be thinking, oh man, like they're on top of Joe, like that's a bad sign. But realistically, like what if I'm setting them up for a triangle choke or an armbar? It's like you're taking a step back, going on the defensive, but you're actually pulling the offensive at the end. Mike, let's go to you next, man. You've done a bunch of different reverse diets and cuts with me, man. What was
Yep.
Feedback, thoughts? What do you want to kind of share?
I'm gonna kind of echo what Jeremy said, is like everyone's gonna have a different experience on it. Me personally, I'm more like that second example where, I went from the cut to the reverse diet and I still dropped. Like, the first time I did a reverse diet, it was a little bit longer than what Jeremy said. I did it for like almost 3 to 4 months, but I continually just saw a slow drop in both body fat and weight over the course of it. Wasn't expecting that, but I got to the point I was eating 3,000 calories a day and still losing a half pound every couple of weeks.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, I wish that was me. Cause like anytime I go above 2,700 calories, like I typically put on some body fat, and like, it's not the funnest, but mentally I have to know like, okay, I need to do this and add on some extra body fat. And that's okay for that season of life. So that way I can make sure that I'm lifting heavier. So when I cut, like it looks a lot better when I do get down to 10% body fat, because I'm able to put on that excess muscle during the time of the reverse diet. Mark, what about you? You've had very successful cuts and reverse diets.
Yeah, and I think the important part of to note about the reverse diet is that it's a tool like any other, and you can use it for different purposes. So I've had 2 reverse diets for 2 very different reasons. The first reverse diet was really about, I had been at a deficit for a long time. It was time to not be at that deficit to bring up the calories and see if we could, kind of keep the metabolism going with some more calories. And we did it very slowly and carefully, kind of increasing very gradually each week and monitoring it. And kind of like what Coach Mike said, by doing it gradually and monitoring it, I was able to continue to lose body fat while increasing, the calorie range. Second time around was a different story. By that point, I had kind of, achieved, as much weight loss as I was looking for, and I wanted to put on, some definition. So that time around, we kind of set a limit, you and I, of like, okay, here's where we want your body fat percentage to rise to as a limit. Here's the weight we want you to get to, so that we were kind of setting a goal of increasing, muscle mass, to a certain level.
Yeah.
And that allowed us to kind of jump a little faster because we weren't being so careful about looking to lose, in terms of increasing the calories. And by the end, I had gotten, just about exactly to the weight and the body fat percentage that we had set as a goal. So I was able to keep those in line. And it was another, very successful reverse diet, but for a different purpose. So it just goes to show you that these tools can be used in different ways depending on what you're looking to accomplish.
Yeah. Yeah. Great point there. And that second reverse diet you did, that was very successful because you hit the goal, the body fat, everything like spot on too, which is perfect. So guys, just to summarize before we wrap things up here, like the reason why I want to bring to everybody's attention about this is because one, it's all about like us as a team helping you guys with the proper knowledge, right? Of knowing what to do because there's going to be plenty of times in your life where you hit a sticking point, you hit a stall, and you might be thinking like, dude, just cut out the calories or let me just get more steps in. And sure, like that does help, but also at the same time, like how many more calories you're going to cut before it's too little? How many more steps are you going to get before you're like 20,000 steps every single day and you're not spending any time with your family because you're walking like a madman, right? Where it's just like switch the mindset. How do we put on the muscle without thinking, right? A perspective of getting all big and bulky and steroid looking, right? It's putting on the muscle for a specific reason to help us overall lose more body fat. We always do a reverse diet, typically around the end of August, September, October-ish. I know we're probably going to do another water cut here in August, and then afterwards, maybe drip into the reverse diet. And the reason why I'm telling you guys this is because, like, having the right mindset for anything, that's what's going to matter the most. Doing it with a bunch of guys that already had success at doing it, or just doing it in general, it's going to help you stick in the game a little bit longer. Okay. I wanted to make today's training just something different to once again educate you guys in terms of a different perspective. Now, just show of hands, right? Thumbs up or thumbs down. Was this helpful at all? Hands up. Perfect. Okay, cool. Because there's so much more that I want to teach you guys as we progress more and more.